All right, so I need to make a chuck because this diameter is too small for my newer pots to fit in. So what I need to do is make sure that my second chuck is definitely big enough because I only want to do this once. So I'm going to measure the diameters of my big pots. I'm going to go a little bit beyond their rims so I make sure there's clearance. And let's see if this is the same. About the same. I'm going to go a little bit bigger. Okay, so that's going to be my inside diameter. And I need quite a bit of vertical or tipped out, let's see here, like that to get down to here. So yeah, I need it. Anyway, there's my diameter. And what I decided to do was, instead of using my precious, expensive Primo clay, I'm using an older clay body that I don't use anymore, and then I'm just going to use my Primo clay as a coil on the rim. So we are going to keep, I'm going to conserve my own clay that I love. I'm also using a shitty bat. So I found my worst, I don't know if it's my worst, but pretty bad bat, all chopped up and chewed up. And one that I don't mind kind of holding up for a while because I don't know if I'll need to, but I can leave this leather hard for a while. So mostly this is just going to be a thick cylinder. And I have the other one right here in front of me, so I'm sure that this one will be wide enough. Because I can look at that one. I've got my calipers for the inside measurement. Got off a little bit. Okay, all the way to the bat. Even though this is not my Primo clay, it's very nice to throw with. So that's a little bonus. Okay. This will probably just be one pull, and then making the rim very thick, angling the rim down for the angles of these shoulders, taking out as much water as I can. So I'm going to want to dry this out pretty much right away. Use it pretty much right away. So, oh yeah, and then I have my coil to add. So first let's do this. We need it wider than this. So a little bit wider than that. One more kind of straightening pull. I can also pull a little bit of the walls because in the future I might have a pot that has a neck, and it'll be nice to leave some room for that. So this is for these pots, but I can also think about future pots that I will also be able to use this chuck for. Okay, let's measure that. Lots of space. That's great. Okay, so now I want to add my coil of my Primo clay, and this doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be this color clay. So I've never actually done this. I'm kind of making it up here. Let's get it a little bit wet. And I'm just going to go around and see if we have enough. Oh my gosh, almost enough. Okay, so I can kind of squeeze these towards each other and maybe thin this out. Thin that out. I can also just get some clay here and add it in that little hole. Okay. Had so close to the right diameter. So close. This is not rolling very well, but here we can kind of pinch it and let's get rid of some. And I don't think this is the best, but There we go. Okay. So now I'm just going to gently work this in here. Okay. I'm going to compress this down as I'm holding the rim and lifting up a tiny bit on the rim and pushing this down. Just like compressing a rim. There's that one little trouble area, but this is really just to hold a pot, so it doesn't need to be perfect. Let's get that. And I would like these to be straight. I once saw this guy on YouTube and he was like, if you make a chuck biscuit, you know, don't get rid of it and have to make another one, just make one and use it for decades, you know, you use it for your whole lifetime as a potter. So that's kind of the angle that I've taken ever since I saw that. So I started bisquing my chucks. I used to keep them leather hard as long as I could. Let's see here. Always losing my tools. Okay, I'm going to score this up. Make it thick. Push it down a little bit. And I'll measure one more time just to make sure. Yes, plenty of room. And then I'm going to start drying this off. So first I'll use a rib to get a layer off. Also to make it clean on the bottom for when I want to cut this off to biscuit. Last time I didn't do that, so it was a little bit messy. And on the inside. Okay. And I will make myself a clean line for cutting later. Little annoying thing there. Okay, doesn't really matter. And whoop, inside, clean line. Jumping on the choppy bat. Okay, so now, like all this stuff just to trim a foot. But this is many feet for the rest of my life, right? Right. Okay. Clean off a little bit. Heat gun action. Alright, so now it's kind of firm. I'll do a little bit more. I really want this to be able to hold the whole weight of that pot when I put it on, and I also want the rim to be not too wet so it doesn't create sticky, you know, it doesn't create a mess on the rim. I want it to just touch it without marring it, without creating more work for myself. So this is just a heat gun. You can use a hair dryer, you can use a torch, or you can just let it sit up until it gets leather hard. If I had known I needed a chuck, I would have made it at the same time as I made these pots, but I thought my old chuck was gonna fit. Rant, rant. Looking at the angle of these pots and thinking that I might want to angle this a little bit more, the rim, because they have, ooh, that got hot. They have pretty strong angles. So maybe before I heat gun it anymore, I will increase the angle here. nice to mirror the angle of the pot. Okay. All right. Does still have that little bump there, but I think it's okay. I think it's gonna hold it. Okay, so then we'll have to move over to my trimming wheel. And fingers crossed. Okay. Let me grab this big pot again. And this one, I'm going to, I think that it has a pretty thin bottom. I think I'm just gonna trim it round and then throw a foot, a pedestal foot for it. So first of all, it seems to hold. That's good. And then I'm gonna have to center it. Okay, not bad. All right, so now for watching the paint dry. Trimming big things like this, for me, it just takes a long time. Last year when I trimmed my moon jar, I think it took me like 20 minutes. I seem to be at about 10 minutes this year, at least based on the last one I did. So that's good. Still 10 minutes to trim a pot seems like a long time. I'm just trying to assess this whole thing about this foot and how much room I have. I'm pretty sure this was the first one I made, and I feel like I remember that it just didn't have that much room to play. So I'm gonna trim it round. And then I'm asking myself, what does round look like on this pot? How much space do I have here? So I'll just work with this line here. And it doesn't have to be perfectly round. It just has to be into the diameter that I want the foot to be and cleaned up. This pot is much drier than the last one, so much easier to trim. I'm like relaxing my shoulders. The chuck seems to be holding really nicely. I don't notice any kind of slumping or anything, so that's awesome. Awesome. That's looking kind of round. Pretty fun, huh? Pretty fun making big stuff. I'm like trying to figure out, what do I do with this monster? What am I even doing here? I had some great conversations with my customers yesterday, and one thing we were saying was, or I was saying, is like, being a potter, working with clay, it's kind of in our bones, you know, not just potters, but everyone. It's just a human thing to feel comfortable and natural working with soil, working with dirt, with the earth. It's in our ancestry, all of us, all of our ancestors had their hands in the dirt, whether they were gardeners, potters, farmers, people breaking ground, but even just this thing of like molding clay and making shapes and making tools and functional items. It's in us all. I feel like we're all kind of naturally potters. And often I think of this great story that this friend of mine who used to be a potter, maybe once a potter, always a potter, in that vein that I'm talking about. One thing he told me was that he was hitchhiking once, and he got picked up by a car full of nuns. And they asked him what he did, and he told them that he was a potter. And they said, God was a potter. Sculpting Adam and Eve out of clay, I think is what they were, or Adam. I think that's what they were referring to, but I think of that often. God was a potter. Okay, I think this is a pretty good angle. Probably as good as I'm gonna get, because there's like a little bit of a kind of a flatness here, and so I have to work with that. I can't make it round where it's flat. I have to work around it. Just a little bit. I might be able to make it round from the inside, but it doesn't sound easy. I like things to be easy. Okay, so just right here, I think that might be from where I picked it up before and kind of indented it a little bit. Let's see if we can get some of these lines out now. There's something about working with clay that just feels like love. Connection and presence and doing our best, hoping, crafting, putting our hearts into something. Okay, I'm really appreciating my chuck right now, at this moment. I wonder if somebody named Chuck was the first person who come up with it. Why is it called a chuck? Just taking all the lines out. Yeah, intimacy. I have to be intimate when we work. Okay, so let's just touch it up with damp sponge. Nurturing. And then I think I can sign it here. And I think I'm gonna throw a foot on it. I guess I could trim this as a foot and call it good. Let's go ahead and just in case, because I don't want to have to put it back on, let's just kind of find a foot here. Find a foot. intimacy. Okay, it just takes a long time to do everything, doesn't it? You just put a little foot on it that I probably won't even keep. I just in case, I don't want to throw a foot for this. Takes a long time. When you have a commitment to loving your lines, you just have to keep going. You go past good enough to good, to love. I love it. I love my lines. Instead of somebody will buy that. Okay, let's take her out. I've got to set it up and see, but I do think it needs a foot. I think it needs a foot that reflects the instead of this tiny little nub. Take a look at it. It's actually pretty nice just as it is. Interesting, you kind of have to step away and see things. But yeah, I think it's okay as is. I don't think it needs a foot. I'm gonna leave it for now. I have this other one that I will throw a foot on.